Major Garrett joins us now. He's been tracking the campaigns from Washington. Major, let's start with that National Review manifesto condemning Donald Trump. Who signed it, and could it influence primary voters?
A lot of very significant voices, long-standing in the conservative movement, and some who are just arrived at the conservative movement. Let me go down the list. Brent Bozell, Eric Erickson, he of the Red State blog. Ed Meese, former Attorney General for Ronald Reagan. Ed worked with him when Ronald Reagan was governor of California. Russell Moore, a prominent voice in the Southern Baptist Convention. John Podhoretz and Bill Kristol. All of them, in various ways, said the following about Donald Trump. He is crude, he is vulgar, he has Mussolini or Hitler-like or Perón-like tendencies, which means he has a strongman approach to government, doesn't understand fundamentally conservative ideas, doesn't understand limited government, doesn't understand the constitutional limitations of the presidency. All of them, in one way or another, warned that Donald Trump, if he becomes the nominee or if he becomes president, would do serious harm to a conservative movement they argue has benefited the country over decades. Let me read one part of the National Review editorial. The movement that ground down the Soviet Union and took the shine, at least temporarily, off socialism would have fallen in behind a huckster. The movement concerned with such permanent things as constitutional government, marriage, and the right to life would have become a clack for a Twitter feed. These are more of the sentiments behind not just the National Review editorial and those who signed this manifesto. The great question, though, is this broadside against Trump tactically too late? I've talked to many conservatives and Republicans this morning on the phone and via email and said, you know, I've read every essay. All of the things written in National Review could have been written about Donald Trump in October and November. And they all agreed. And they all look, in retrospect, as if they wish they had been written then. And this long-running conversation, or what would have been a long-running conversation, would have had a chance to seep in to the political mindset and conversation evaluating Donald Trump. But it didn't happen in October and November. It happened 10 days before the Iowa caucuses. And that may be too late from these conservatives' point of view to stop Trump. And that may be something, in retrospect, they look back with regret.
Major, I'm curious about those conversations that you've been having with people, because the question then becomes for me, why didn't they speak up back in October? What was it that they were thinking was going to happen? Did they count very much at that time on something perhaps causing Donald Trump to implode? Was that their wish? Was that their fervent hope? And now they're just desperately trying to do what they can to try and hit Donald Trump, just, as you said, a few days out here from Iowa.
A wish and a hope. I think that encapsulates it very nicely. Back in October and November, there was a sense that Trump was a phenomenon. He was a celebrity. He was polling well, but he couldn't possibly, they thought then, have the durability that Trump is proven to have now. And that was a miscalculation, at least from the perspective of these conservative intellectuals, about Trump and whether or not he could have genuine staying power. And the other question that goes on now, or the conversation rather, Elaine, that's going on now, is as Trump gets close to Iowa and New Hampshire, he'll probably do very well in Iowa. He could win there, projected to do very well, and probably will win in New Hampshire. Many of the establishment Republican figures in the fundraising circles are now having conversations fundamentally different from the one that National Review is trying to start. And the conversation goes like this. Well, we don't like Ted Cruz. We don't trust him. We think he's an ideologue and he's against everything we stand for, and we can't get along and work out arrangements with him. Maybe we should get along with Trump. Maybe we should find a way to get inside the Trump tent. And that's a conversation that may dislodge some people who have been in the Rubio camp or the Jeb Bush camp or the Chris Christie camp or the John Kasich camp, because they think possibly Donald Trump is unstoppable. So as you have the conservative intellectuals saying, no, 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 you can't go in Trump's direction, a lot of establishment figures with a lot of money and a lot of history in Republican mechanics and party politics are saying, maybe it's time to get on the bus. So a lot of conversation about Trump going in completely different directions.
Well, Cruz, Major, he has criticized Trump for saying that Trump would make deals in Washington and accused him of becoming part of the establishment. In response, Trump is saying that a little establishment would help him make deals. So can a Republican win the nomination without establishment support?
Certainly a Republican can create a dynamic around his or her campaign. Historically, it's been his campaign, which says, I'm running and I've got a following behind me, and the establishment can be with me or can be without me. And candidates that create a following that doesn't necessarily embed itself in the establishment, guess what? They get the establishment to come near them because the establishment wants to win and it wants to be close to power. Ronald Reagan did this very much in 1980. First, he ran in 1976 against the sitting President Gerald Ford. Yes, he was an accidental president because of Richard Nixon's resignation, but he was still the president and still the Republican Party standard bearer. That rankled a lot of Republicans and conservatives, but it laid the foundation for Reagan to say, you know what, I don't need the establishment in 1980. I'm going to create a broader following. And guess what? The establishment came in later as they saw Reagan's political potency. So it can be done. And I would say in Trump's case and in Cruz's case, if either one of them emerge as the likely Republican nominee, the establishment will find a way to get nearer to them than they are now. That process has already begun with Trump. It may begin rather with Cruz if Cruz finds a way to best Trump in Iowa, New Hampshire, or South Carolina.
All right, Major Garrett for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.